Hi, it's me, Karen Romano Young, back with Alice the Giraffe, some sea stars from Alaska, and Elliot's Flag People, and this book, A Girl, a Raccoon, and the Midnight Moon, with pictures by Jessica Bagley, published by Chronicle Kids in 2020, and it's the last chapter, chapter 50, The Librarians Child. December 1st. Flash forward to December 1st, or as Pearl had come to call it, Demolition Day. Nichols had told Pearl that everybody would understand if she stayed away. "But I can't," said Pearl. "I'll at least stay in the garden with Vincent. Otherwise, what will she think?" But she was inside. Why? Because Alice and Dinesh were bringing their baby, Rose, to the library for the very first time. "Rose has to see the cast iron and glass reading room," Alice said, "even if she doesn't remember it later." The new parents didn't plan to stay once the demolition began, what with all the noise and dust that would cause. So they came early, passing through the double doors, the baby in a little carrier on Alice's front, her eyelids heavy. "Don't fall asleep yet, little girl," said Dinesh. "Come and see what there is to see." They skirted around the cracked spiral staircase, padded softly up the straight stairs to the doorway of the reading room, and peeked under the caution tape. Baby Rose gazed up at the window light filtering through the cloudy glass floor. Pearl put her finger on a rainbow refraction on the wall. "Look, Rose," she said. "Take her and show her," said Alice. Pearl reached for the baby and held her against her own front the way Alice did. She tried to imagine herself as a soft-bodied little cuddle muffin being carried around this building in someone's arms, and surprised herself by remembering one or two things that definitely felt like nonfiction. Pearl carried Rose to the wall with the rainbow and held her up closer to see the shimmer of color. Then she walked the length of the stacks. "See," she told the bright-eyed little baby, "remember this. You've got to. You're going to be the next librarian's child." After the little family left, there was only a short wait before the trucks arrived. The first thing they did when they came was put up scaffolding around Vincent and protected her with one of those green net coverings you see on buildings under construction. Workers screened off the reading room from the main room of the library, and children's and nonfiction from the cast iron mezzanine. And at long last, the actual demolition began. The creak of crowbars, then the whir of power screwdrivers and wrenches, and finally the thud of sledgehammers. A sidebar about stories. A good story will always rise up and get noticed. And good stories come from the strangest places. Not that there's anything really strange or even unique about Lancaster Avenue. Oh no, the places I'm talking about are the ones inside people, or raccoons, by M.A.M. Pearl was huddled in the open doorway to the book elevator when Francine arrived. Though she knew she was getting too big to travel that way, she sat there with her legs hanging out. "Come on, Pearl," Francine said. "Come and take a peek." "I don't want to," Pearl said. "Be brave. Be a witness." "Forget it, Francine." "It's what you fought for, Pearl. You owe it to yourself." "It'll just make me sad." "Better to see than not to see," said Francine. "Better to know than not to know." So Pearl let her friend pull her up and walk her to the doorway. They pulled aside the screening so they could see inside. Ugh! It was like a blow to the stomach. The mullioned windows had been removed and the holes boarded over with plywood. Pearl knew they would be put back again at the end, but right now the sight was gut-wrenching. One whole side of the cast iron framework of the mezzanine and the stacks below had been removed as though they had never been there. The room looked huge, gaping, empty, devastated. Pearl couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. "Gutted," said Francine behind her. Pearl knew she meant both the room and herself. Nobody would ever know what used to be here, said Pearl. That's how it will be for the next generation, said Francine. Nobody will ever know what we did, Pearl added. Kids like Rose will come for story hour with their parents, and then when they're in school, they'll get their own library cards and take out books, and they'll mess around in the garden and play rock lady games just because they learned them at school without knowing why. Francine added, they'll wear reading raccoon baseball caps and read the moon and not know where it all came from. And that'll be okay. That's how it's supposed to be, because we'll know. They'll know too, Pearl said. I'll make sure of it. How? Asked Francine. Same as always, said Pearl. That's what stories are for. O world, I cannot hold thee close enough, said Edna St. Vincent Millay in God's World. From the poem God's World from Renaissance, I don't know how to say it, and other poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Harper, 1917. And here's a small selection of the books Pearl reads. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, a Victorian anthology edited by Edmund Clarence Stedman. Bedtime for Francis by Russell Hoban, The Book of Three by Lloyd Alexander, Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, illustrated by Garth Williams, The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, El Defo by C.C. Bell, The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman, Guess What by Mem Fox, illustrated by Vivian Goodman, The Harp Weaver and Other Poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling, Hecate Peg by Audrey Wood, The Historical Atlas of New York State by William P. Munger, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, Holes by Louis Sachar, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie by Laura Numeroff, In the Night Kitchen by Maurice Sendak, In Search of Sasquatch by Kelly Milner Halls, The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste, The Kissing Hand by Audrey Penn, illustrated by Ruth E. Harper and Nancy M. Leake, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, Madeline by Ludwig Bemelmans, Matilda by Roald Dahl, illustrated by Quentin Blake, Mike Mulligan and His Steam Shovel by Virginia Lee Burton, Mine the Harvest by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Nuts to You by Lynn Ray Perkins, Paul Bunyan, A Tall Tale retold and illustrated by Stephen Kellogg, Pinkie Pie by Eleanor Estes, illustrated by Edward R. Disney, The Princess Marries the Page, a play in one act by Edna St. Vincent Millay, Raccoons, A Natural History by Samuel I. Zaveloff, Raccoons Are the Brightest People by Sterling North, Rascal by Sterling North, Renaissance and Other Poems by Edna St. Vincent Millay, The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats, Stregonona by Tommy DePaola, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble by William Steig, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There by Lewis Carroll, Treehouse Chronicles, One Man's Dream of Life Aloft by S. Peter Lewis and T.B.R. Walsh, When You Reach Me by Rebecca Stead, National Geographic, The New Yorker, Time Magazine, U.S. News and World Report, Utney Reader, and The Wall Street Journal. Thank you for reading with me. Thank you for listening over all these long days of our pandemic. I am honored to have had listeners, and I hope that you will read this book if you still need to. And I have a few acknowledgments. Thank yous at the back of the book. The setting for this book, you might be interested to know, is composed of a combination of libraries. The Fairfield Public Library in Fairfield, Connecticut, where I grew up and worked. The Harlem, Ottendorfer, Tompkins Square, and Hudson Park branches of the New York Public Library. At the Fairfield Public Library, Arnie Bass, Peggy Abramo, Pearl Wiebe, and Karen Whitney, Carol Sturley, Adele Brownfield, Paul Meyer, Marlene Standish, Lynn Kresha, and David Kelleher. And thank you to the following for their guidance. At the New York Public Library, Christy Raffensperger and Stevie Feliciano. At Connecticut State Library, Linda Williams. At Cragen Memorial Library, Kate Byrode and her recommendees. and some friends and loved ones, Mary Claire Quine, Gail Carson Levine, and my daughters, Bethany Pino and Emily Young. There are so many more libraries and librarians who have sheltered and inspired me, each one a shining gem. Thank you. Hugs also to Taylor. That's Taylor Norman of Chronicle, who edited this book. Kayla is the designer of the book. Kayla Ferreira. Jessica Bagley is the illustrator, and Faye Bender is my agent. Thank you. Goodbye.